So, how to take the changes of rhythm changes and spice them up while not destroying the feeling of tonality. Again, having enough structure yet freedom to alter things, but still feel like we're in the universe of that tune, you know. Certainly above the root, we can change things to a certain degree, and maybe it's a little subjective how much we can change the chord tones above the root without completely destroying everything about the tune's original harmony. If you want to do that, great, you know, take us, you know, blast us off in outer space. But again, it's like making a soup. You don't want so much spice that you lose the idea of the soup. So let's look at the changes for rhythm changes, right? So we could go super, super basic and make it super diatonic to the key of B flat. So it'd be something like this. Typically played as a dominant chord. You could kind of play with the chord qualities a little bit. Could even flip it to minor. So already you can play with the spice a little bit, but dominant typically. Okay, cool. Now, the first thing that usually gets added is the 6th chord becomes dominant. I played it super, super inside, right? Because that was a B flat, which is in the key, obviously, of B flat. Having that little dominant shift will color it a little differently. So we had this voicing. Oh, okay, we go dominant. This is like adding in black pepper. It's not going to destroy the soup, unless you put in too much of it, of course. But okay, that's just a little spice. So we had this versus a little bit of a brighter pop. This is the stuff that you can really ear train on just to get the real subtle differences of it. Right? So we can make the 6th chord dominant. Right? This tune, the changes to rhythm changes tunes are very heavily leaning on the 1-6-2-5, 3-6-2-5 as well. So we could certainly do that. Again, we're not changing the roots. That's starting to really change the flavor of things, but we're going from a minor chord to a dominant chord, so that's very cool. Now, if we wanted a little bit more spice, we could also make the 2 chord dominant. So now we have, it's just a little bit more of a bright pop to some of the chords. Okay, why does that still work? Well, it's the idea of the chain of dominance, right? We're aiming basically at getting back to B flat, and by way of basically a 2-5-1, and we add in the 6th chord, and it basically goes around the circle of fifths. We go B flat to G, down to C, or you could say up the circle of fourths, down to F, down to B flat. So we're doing essentially a chain of dominance, and that also happens on the bridge as well, where you go D, which is the 5 of this, which is the 5 of that, which is the 5 of the original key, back to 1. So we can get a little spicy on the dominant chords. Now we have everything as a dominant chord. I would advise against starting with making the 1 chord a dominant chord, because we want 1 to feel like home for right now. Of course, yes, you can totally go crazy on this chord as well, but let's start, you know, step by step. And it's kind of subjective what the spices will be. You know, what's spicier for you might not be spicy for me. So we started with this. Now this chord is dominant, the 6. 2 is dominant. 5 is dominant. Now let's start altering the G chord. And even though we're altering it, actually it's in the key of B flat, these notes, the E flat and the B flat. So it actually sounds both sort of outside and inside, because we're actually playing some notes that are diatonic to the B flat key. So before we add this, fairly plain, very nice, but fairly plain. Okay, nice, we're getting somewhere, this is cool. Okay, now we got this. Well, I could add another diatonic note from B flat. Sharp 9, for instance. Interesting. If I wanted to go a little bit outside, I could go flat 9. Again, think about where you're coming from and what you like and what sounds good to you. Maybe. I actually like that sharp 9 chord. That's my spice of choice today. We go to the 5 chord. Let's mess with this one just slightly. We could take this up, go outside the key a little bit, take that down. Now, the 5 chord in the original key is a great one to get spicy because you're going to resolve back to the 1 chord. So this is our tension, even when it's played very, in a very diatonic manner, back to 1. We can go really crazy on this chord. And it actually makes a better pull back to the 1 chord. All those different spices and alterations because we want the tension and then we want the release. And when the tension is greater, just like in life, the release is that much sweeter. The payoff is better when you've struggled for something like that. So now we've made the 6 chord, the 2 chord, and the 5 chord dominant and altered. Now, again, we want to add spices, but do you want a bowl of cayenne pepper and black pepper? I don't. Some people might. But now let's see what this sounds like. Great, we're still keeping the feeling of tonality because the root movement is still the same. The thirds and the sevenths, all still cohesive. So that's why we call those other ones color tones very often, is because the colors are shifting, but it still allows us to stay in the same universe. Now, let's go outside of the known universe for now. Let's say, for example, so this works well as a minor chord, as well as a dominant chord. So we could certainly do that. What if we really destroyed the feeling of those two? Okay, this feels like a new key now, right? Because dominant chords and minor chords feel like they have to go somewhere to a lot of people's ears. Whoa. Really whoa. Extremely spicy. So if you want to, we're still keeping the root movement the same. We have to be grounded somehow. It starts sounding like a different key. We start destroying the feeling of tonality more because now the chord qualities are not what we would expect. We're actually changing the sevenths and the thirds, That could be, interesting. Still kind of keeping it inside the key because it's still a minor chord, disguising it with a little spice here. So I'll just go through, and again, just like we talked about before with our voice leading exercise, okay, these voice leading tones have to go somewhere. They have to voice lead somewhere. Well, that would lead down. This one would maybe stay here. This one could come down 1. So the voice leading will allow you to arrive at something that is maybe bizarre, but it's logical because the voice is moved in a very smooth fashion. So even if the voice leading, even if the chords are weird, but the voice leading is good, everything is moving smoothly, so the ear accepts the spiciness of those chords better. And of course, then if you change the root movement, you're just in a whole different dimension at that point. You're not playing the tune anymore, unless the melody is happening, and then maybe you are. So some really fun reharmonizations. Again, limitation, but also freedom. And the amount of freedom that you take from the limitation is kind of yours to discover. But some of these choices will really pull you super far out into another universe.
Hey, Noah here. Just want to let you know really quick that most of the content you're actually seeing on this channel is coming from completely free masterclasses that we've been holding. So if you actually want to join and be a part of those masterclasses, again, it's totally free. Click one of the links in the description that will give you access to free resources, free courses, and of course the free masterclasses. And as soon as you're on the email list, you will be one of the first people to know when we are holding these masterclasses. And on top of that, you get lots of free sheet music and videos and resources as well. So highly recommend you sign up. You can also join our free online community, which is in Discord, in a server there. So you can click the link down there for that as well. And we are on there interacting, hanging out, giving people feedback and advice, as well as on the free masterclasses, Zoom hangs, and feedback sessions. So again, highly recommend you get signed up, and I will see you there.